We are back, and we are going to talk about the Korean War today. This was from 1950 to 1953, and if you recall, by 1950, what kind of government did the Chinese have? Communist. And they still do, and this is why in a dictatorship that's focused on secrecy, they kept the coronavirus stuff hidden for months, and I don't want to get into that. Okay. Korea, as if you may recall, was occupied by Japan since like 1910, I think, or 1900. And after World War II ended, the Korean people were finally free to make their own country. And guess what? There was influence for coming from China to become communist. But in the South, the influence was to be a capitalist democracy. And they went to war over this. And they're divided at the 38th parallel. So if you remember the latitude and longitude lines, this latitude line is 38. I cannot talk now, pal. Sorry, getting a phone call. And so in 49, the Soviets and the United States withdrew forces that had been there since the end of World War II. And a year later, North Korean communists attacked the South Korea capital and captured it. So here's the South Korean capital right here. It's captured by communists. Remember containment and all that kind of stuff? Well, Harry Truman, who's president when this starts, we got to do something about it. And the UN gets together, remember the United Nations, and they say, we will send troops to protect the South Koreans. The interesting thing here, and remember the whole concept of mutually assured destruction, you don't want to get into a nuclear war. The Russians were in the UN, and they had what's called veto power. So there's 5 countries that sit on, that can, if one of those 5 countries vetoes a UN resolution, then the thing can't go through. They figured the Russians were going to veto it. If that happened, the US would have officially declared war, and it wouldn't have been just a UN action. Conveniently, the Russian ambassador to the United Nations called in sick that day and didn't make the meeting, therefore he couldn't veto the resolution. And Truman sends troops without consulting Congress because he called this a United Nations police action. He didn't want to say war. It was. And again, didn't want to say war because this might trigger a nuclear war. You've got to be very careful with that. And so you basically have North Korea and China versus South Korea, the USA, and the United Nations. Now, it was, technically United Nations troops, but the overwhelming majority of them were American troops. 3 years of fighting, and it kind of ends as a tie. So, and I wish I could go into more detail about this one, but it was, wait, do I have another map here? No, I don't. Oh, don't do this again. Stop it. Okay. Basically, the initial attacks captured Seoul, and the South Koreans were basically reduced to just like this area. The rest of it was taken over by communists. And then the American troops showed up, and they went and performed this really cool move. Oh, no. Yeah, they go around and attack behind the North Korean front lines, which orders the North Koreans had to retreat. There's so many arrows here. I'm going to make the Americans blue to fight there. And then the Americans start pushing back, and the North Korean troops flee over this river into China. And at this point, General Douglas MacArthur, who was the general in the Pacific during World War II, he wants to nuke China. He's like, Truman, give me the power to nuke China. This whole thing will be over. We'll get rid of communism in China. We'll get rid of communism in North Korea. And Truman says, no, we're not starting a nuclear war because you know what? The Soviets are going to get involved, and they're going to nuke us if that happens, and everything's going to be destroyed. And then General MacArthur goes on television and criticizes the president, which a general should not do, especially during a war. And Truman fires MacArthur, does not allow him to pursue into China, and Then the Chinese come storming back, hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers, and push the United States forces back to like over here, and this is where we are now. And so this is sort of the border. This war, it's called the DMZ. I'm gonna actually post a funny video about this. This war is not technically over. They've never signed a peace treaty, and this is why at the DMZ there's just troops standing there the whole time. Okay. This was a picture, I don't know if anyone's seen it, of, you know, an overhead satellite photo of North Korea and South Korea. So here is South Korea, and here is North Korea. And what do you notice about this photo that was taken at night? The capital of North Korea is basically the only place in the entire country with electricity running. Whereas here, South Korea, this is the capital city of Seoul. A modern city, beautiful place, great place to live. North Korea, as you all know if you've heard the stories of it, is one of the worst places to live on Earth. They have all kinds of prison camps. It's again, it's a communist dictatorship. You don't want to live there. North Korea makes money by selling prisoners to China to work by like cutting down trees and stuff. And Kim Jong-un, brutal dictator, only reason he hasn't killed more people is because his country's small. He also claimed to his people that, and they have to like believe everything he says, because if you don't, you can go to jail. He found a miracle drug that cures cancer and AIDS. This one pill that he made, and it was made from rare earth minerals and the horn of a unicorn. And this is the official thing in South Korea. You have to believe it. People are spying on each other within the families. When Kim's father died, it was all these people crying in the street, like, and if you didn't cry hard enough, you could go to jail. It's absolute insanity. Anyway, I can go on and on for that one, but I will stop there with Korea because we've got another video coming up from Conan O'Brien, where he has Glenn from The Walking Dead, and they go visit Glenn is Korean American. They go visit the DMZ, and it's pretty funny.